Why, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I'm your host and guide, Zollin Ironshield, and today we're on a LOTRO guide, and I'm going to talk to you about all the differences and what do they even all mean between instances, raids, epic battles, skirmishes, missions, Delvings. What do all these terminologies mean? They all have to do with different events you do in Lord of the Rings Online, okay, the MMO, and I'm going to walk you through and talk through all of them right now. I will have other videos showing you some in-game actions of actually doing them as well, and I have a playlist called Battles, Lord of the Rings, a LOTRO battle, and it has all of my, I put epic battles in there and raids and things like that, and then also we do live streams sometimes where you can check this out as well with my Kinship. But with that said, my friends, this is for anybody who just needs a refresher, who's been a long-time player, or someone who is brand new to the game and you just need some help with the game, okay? So this is more of the basics, all right, in this video, but let me get straight into it, all right? Then I'll keep you waiting. So, again, I just listed off all these terms. You probably saw in the title of the video. We have instances, raids, epic battles, skirmishes, right? Delvings, missions. What are all these different things? What are their similarities? What works? What are they exactly? All that kind of stuff. So let's start with the term instances. Okay, so if you're someone from another MMO or another video game, these are a lot of times considered something like a dungeon, okay? That's a little bit more commonly known term. The reason Lord of the Rings Online uses the term instances is because it's like a story, okay? A lot of times they're like a story mode. You're playing through something, right? You're playing through something you're helping a certain character with, or you're doing something that's one of the main stories, right? That might be really, really cool, okay? So, and I'm going to break down why are they special and different in this video as well. So pretty much the main two things that have always been in the game are the instances, which are things that you just run. Instances can also be in several forms, okay, without confusing you too much. Instances usually are a place you go into, right? You find an opening, and it's kind of like, again, like a dungeon in the terminology, and you go in and usually bring 6 players with you, and that's called a fellowship in Lord of the Rings Online, okay? It's your group size. There's 6, so you can have 6 in them. There are different amounts of players instances. There's solo instances. There's solo duo instances, okay? These are ones that allow you to have 2 people in it. There are 3-man instances, okay? 3 people, just like it sounds. And then, of course, the regular size instance, which is a full group of 6 people, okay? So now with that out of the way, with that information, now let's talk about raids. Raids are a big event. Now, raids are very classically known in every video game and MMO, okay? So we have the normal size raid in Lord of the Rings Online is about 12 players, so it's 2 groups. There is a very large raid that is 4, okay, in size, and that is four groups, right? So you have 24 players. There is one of those, but that is very unusual in Lord of the Rings Online. They don't usually have massive raids that size as much, but usually you have about 12, all right? I think someone's playing the horns has noticed me in the world, but we'll keep moving on here. And then we are gonna, so that's pretty much raids. Raids are not super hard to understand. It's just basically like big instances, okay? But they're usually for bigger events, and you need a lot of players because they're very, very hard, okay? Now something else we need to talk about. There's this thing called tiers, okay? I'm going to bring up the instance finder and show you just real quick explanation. This is where you'll need to find it. So you go into here, and you could go into instance finder, which is Control-J if you want to open it that way. And if you see here, we have several things. We have the size, which I've explained to you. You can see they've got 1 through 24, which, again, don't get too confused on that. Most raids are going to be 12. There's one that's 24, might be more in the future, who knows. And then you've got your single instance, solo, you have your 2-man, you have your 3-man, and your 6-man. All the instance sizes, okay? You also have these things called tiers. Now, tiers have been transformed to an extent. There's always been like tiers 1 through 3 partway through the world, but here's a terminology that I'm going to bring in, a new word that I put in the title of the video. Delvings, okay? Delvings is not actually an instance or type of thing you go into. It's you increase the difficulty, okay? So delvings are basically like some instances support it, some don't, okay? Some missions support it, but we'll get to missions in a minute. I don't want to confuse you. But basically, when you go into the instance, there's a thing called a delving. You get these delving stones, okay? I'll have a whole video on doing delvings or something for you guys separately so I can physically show you what it looks like. But you'll get the delving zircon here, and this will allow you to do tiers 1 through 3, which is 1 through 3. Now, 1 through 3 tiers have always kind of been in the game for raids and instances and all that kind of stuff, but now you can do up to 10, level 10, okay? I moved a little bit. Someone was making loud noises in the background. So now, at this point, when we talked about Delvings, so Delvings are important, and they're how you get new rewards and special things and stuff like that. So basically, you'll also get a Delving Garnet. You get this once you achieve, you've succeeded in a Delving, I think, level 3. But again, I'll have a separate video fully covering Delvings as well. And then you get that. And then once you completed a Delving of 6 and higher, then you'll get another stone, which will let you do 7 through 9. Okay, and again, these are not their own thing. They're basically difficulty increases to instances and missions. Okay, so that's what the term delving is. All right, it's basically you're just making the instance harder. You get better rewards if you beat it. Okay, I'm trying to simplify this as easy as I can for just the knowledge, so you all have this knowledge. Okay, so now with that out of the way, and we have that, we're now going to talk about the missions. All right, so now missions are something that are a little different. Okay, there's a weekly thing for missions and a monthly thing. All right, or actually there's a daily thing and a monthly thing. You have to do 45 in the whole month to do, and then there's also there's a weekly one too. I'm sorry, there's a monthly and weekly one. So we have the weekly ones that are 15. It depends on where you are, but there is a limit to how many you can do a day. I believe it is 10 from off the top of my head. And it's pretty darn cool, and there's some different things you can do with this, but just know that missions are a great way to farm things and get stuff done, like different crafting materials, different experience things you need, different stuff. So missions are something that usually there's different locations around the world that give missions. There's some at Trestle Bridge, there's some over at the new Umbar area, and again, I'll have some specific videos teaching you guys about that, but just know that instances are a lot, missions, I'm flipping the words there on you, missions are a lot like instances, okay? Usually instances are set things in the world and stories, but there's a lot of connection between missions and instances, except for missions are a particular place you get them. They're usually repeatable, meaning you can do them over and over. Most instances you can do over and over too, but the reason you want to repeat missions over and over because they give you bonuses every day or whatever when you do it, and there's still a limit how many you can do a day to get credit. I think you could do as many as there is open to get in the world, but there's a limit to how many you can do each day to get credit. Okay, but just know missions are a lot like instances, but I'll have a separate video kind of covering the details on how to use missions, why are they good. You'll be using the delving system to up their difficulty to get better rewards in missions quite a bit, just like you would with some instances. Okay, so good. Now we've covered instances, raids, missions, and the terminology of delving. Okay, great. We're getting there, right? For these things that you do in game. So now let's talk about a couple things on the side, like epic battles. All right, epic battles are kind of like an instance or raid, but they're like only a couple of them, and they're story mode things. So if you actually open your little side thing, instead of going to the instance finder, which you Control J, you go to Shift B, or this button here, epic battles. You open this, you're going to have this thing, Epic Battles. My Kinship does Epic Battles all the time. They're fun because they set you to the same level as long as you're level 10, okay? Epic Battles have a whole system. They have these things you can earn to get better in them and all this kind of stuff and rewards. But pretty much in this general age, they will help you with giving you some loot and stuff for around level 100. But pretty much past that, they're kind of not needed, the ones they have right now at the time of this video. Basically, it's the story of the Battle of Helm's Deep and the Battle of the Pelennor Fields or Minas Tirith, okay? There's 5 Battle for Helm's Deep ones. One, you have to do either a 1 or 2 man, or a 6 man, which is Helm's Dyke. Mind you, just so everyone knows, if you're brand new, if you want to do epic battles with your friends, to play 2, 3, 4, and 5 epic battles of Helm's Deep, you have to have completed Helm's Dyke solo or duo version, not the 6-man, the solo or duo, and then it opens up your ability to play the other 4. That's a good side note for any new player to realize that. If you're wondering why can't I join them for the Deeping Wall, 12-man, that's why. So basically the Deeping Wall is the next one. you can do 1 or 2 player and 12 player, which is fun. So basically like a raid size or a solo duo version. Then you have Deeping Comb, which is 1 or solo, and I believe it also is a 3-man normally, but I'm not in this group size. Oh, maybe, never mind. I guess it's just the solo duo one. I thought it was, you did that one as 3-man too, but maybe not. Oh, Glittering Caves. Sorry, I mixed them up. So you have the Deeping Comb, and then you have the Glittering Caves, which is solo duo or 3-man, and then you have the Hornburg, which is a solo or duo. All right, and then you can go over here. You can play Retaking Peligar without doing any of Helm's Deep. It kind of opens up separately for the, but you have to do this one first, I believe the solo duo one too, to play the Defense of Minas Tirith, and then Helms, they open each other up, right, the story. But as you can see here, you can play this one 6-man or solo duo, you can play this one 3-man or solo duo, the Defense of Minas Tirith, and the Hammer of the Underworld solo duo or 6-man, okay? Very cool. Epic battles are very fun. It is cool they scale you all to level 100. But you will be feeling weaker if you're like level 10 and you get scaled up, though. it scales you to make you survivability, but it makes you're still not as strong as you would be if you were 150 and scaled down to 100, okay? There's just some statistics that don't change there. So anyway, epic battles are cool, but you don't really need to worry about them too much in this day and age in LOTRO, unless we get some new ones that are for the max level 150 area. That would be really cool if we got some new ones. I really like these a lot, but there you go. So now you know about epic battles. Now let's talk about skirmishes. What are skirmishes? Skirmishes are a very different feel than regular instances. They do indeed matter, though. All right, so they are very important too, to an extent. But there is an opening quest you'll have to do skirmishes, or an instance skirmish. Now here's why it can get confusing, and I must explain this one more time. Around Middle-earth, you'll find these areas that have these little, like, swords up here, and these are skirmish camps, okay? This is where you can trade stuff in and things like that, and all that stuff. But skirmishes can be found within the Instance Finder, all right? So if we bring up the Instance Finder one more time, and I'm going to go ahead and use a little plus shift here to close everything. You can see here we have epic battles, which I just described. You could also reach them here, but I showed you their individual panel already. You have normal instances, which are basically the main things across the world. You have skirmishes, which are here, and there's a couple different versions of skirmishes. So again, you've already been kind of learned about instances, but just so you know, you have different locations and areas of the world. So like, let's say Karn Doom instance, the Anuminos instance, the Fornos, these are like fortresses, right? Gundabad instances, right? You have Swan Fleet in Cardland. There's one instance for that one. You can kind of go through, and these are all storied locations, and they let you do things as you go through. So anyway, we're going to keep moving, though, because the whole point of this video is to try to make it as quick as possible, just to refresh and you know your terminologies, all right, in LOTRO. So then the next thing that's important, there is something called non-scaling instances. Basically, these instances are kind of more of the classic ones, and these will be locked to a certain level. So remember how I just described how we have all of these instances in the world? I need to now bring up the fact that some scale and some don't, okay? This is slightly different than Delvings or the tier difficulties, which is this term up here. So since these are non-scaling and locked, you cannot use Delvings with a lot of these, okay? And some of these instances, you'll know which ones can use Delvings or not, because when you go in, there's a Delving Stone sitting there. So if there's no Delving Stone, it's not designed to be an upgraded difficulty, right? But some of them you can upgrade automatically within the Instance Finder with the tiers. We jump back to what I said a minute ago. Do you remember how I said that some instances you can go from level 1 to 3 tier? And then I also explained there's also a new thing called Delvings, right? So keep that in mind. Some things cannot use Delvings, some things can. Most of the new missions can do Delvings, which is why I was saying that's very important, Delvings with missions, okay? Now again, missions, you cannot really get to missions from this panel. You have to pick up missions from NPCs as quests, and then you click travel and you go into it that way, okay? That's why missions are a little bit different, and also why they have cooldowns. You can only do them once every 24 hours or whatever it is, off the top of my head, but just keep all that in mind, all right, with that. Going back to skirmishes, since we're at skirmish camp right now, skirmish camp events, you can see that these are all different skirmishings you can do. No, you cannot do any delvings and skirmishes. They do have increased tier difficulty with the Classic 3 increased tier, how hard they are. And you can also choose on what kind of size something is for skirmishes. You see, if you click on any of these, you can look and see the drop down to see how many you can have in that skirmish. As you can see, most skirmishes can be from 1 to 12, pretty much all the party sizes. You can also adjust the level of the skirmish with the level adjuster. So skirmishes are very flexible, but they won't scale everyone to the same level like epic battles. Real quick, what the terminology differences there are is that if you scale the instance to a certain level, doesn't matter who joins it, the level of the instance and the monsters are going to be like, let's say I did level 120, right? Everything in the instance will be set for 120. If someone in the group is 150, they're going to destroy things. If someone in the group is level 50, they're going to get annihilated, right? So you have to kind of keep that in mind, right? With how the scaling works. So skirmishes are kind of nice though, because even if a group of people that are all a certain level, you can do that. Now again, you can also do that with regular instances to an extent, all right? It just depends on which ones, but you cannot do that with the non-scaling instances, okay? You'll be able to do that with some of the regular instances. Now, skirmishes are stuff that you get different currencies for the skirmish camp called marks and medallions. They can be turned in at the skirmish camp for bonuses and things like that. But overall, they're kind of their own thing. They have their own feel. There's things like basically like almost like a capture the flag, but it's not like two teams. You're fighting the computers. So you have to beat a certain group of people, and then you take the flag, and then you move to the next area, and you take that flag, like capture the points, right? It's probably a better terminology to use. There's a survival one, which is basically how many waves can you take until you die. That's kind of a fun one. And then there's some defensive ones. You have to defend certain spots as you get attacked. And you have like artillery to use and stuff like that. Like different things you can use in that. But mostly, by the way, epic battles is where a lot of equipment comes into play. That's kind of its own special thing, where you can use like catapults and trebuchets and put up defenses. It's really kind of cool with epic battles. But again, popping back the skirmishes. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to pop back and forth too much. I'll confuse you all. But overall, skirmishes are fun. They give you some extra bonuses, and you do need them for some things. They're a great way to farm some experience sometimes, because you just fight endless mobs doing them, and you can always set them to your level, so you're always getting the right amount of experience. And in theory, you could set them slightly above your level if you can take it by like 2 or 3 levels, and then it'll give you a little bit more experience, right? So that's kind of cool too. So skirmishes are awesome. Don't worry about the seasonal thing. These are basically like seasonal instances or events, okay? They're usually what you can run to get special tokens for like the Christmas event or the harvest event, or it's technically called Yule event in Lord of the Rings, which matches a little more to the lore. But yeah, so it's really, really cool in that way. So, with that all said, we've talked about skirmishes, we've talked about epic battles, we've talked about the generic instances, we've talked about raids, which are kind of just big instances, and we've talked about delvings, which is actually a system to upgrade that, and we've sort of mentioned on missions, okay? So again, missions are, there's certain places in the world you can get missions, and again, like I told you, you could go to Trestle Bridge. There's a spot, let me see if I can, right up here, at Trestle Bridge, there's people that give missions. There's also in the new area, if we go over to Haradreth and Umbar, there's a missions giver in the the Bloody Eagle Tavern, I think it's called. You can get missions from them, and yeah, it's right here. And there, it's very helpful, and that's where you do a lot of the missions there. But again, missions are something that you're going to want to farm at end game, okay? Missions, again, will give you crafting things. They'll give you stuff for, essences, and it's very helpful. That's where you'll get a lot of your good endgame stuff. And it kind of gives you your daily thing to do, right? You know how most MMOs and most games want you to have something daily to do, to, be involved and get on and be able to do something, so you're not just like, what do I do today? That's kind of what the missions are for. And that's kind of why, and kind of like you kind of challenge yourself with the delving system that gives you even more rewards if you can beat it at a certain difficulty. Okay, so technically you'll go into the mission, you'll put in your little stone that I explained to you already, you'll set the difficulty, and basically it will make the monster stronger. They'll have some effects like they'll blow up and do extra damage to you and things like that, and you have to kind of play around that. It's quite difficult. I did a tier 6 yesterday, and whew, it's quite challenging. But basically, that's what you'll be using that for the missions, okay? So now that you kind of know all those terminologies, let me just throw in a few little side things just in case. The terminology of tasks. What are tasks? Tasks are things at task boards within the world. You can find them on usually on the map, the task board. I think there's one right over here somewhere. I think there it is. The task board is a little feather. Tasks at that location there, right underneath the anvil. Tasks are like things you can turn in to get extra respect for an area or for reputation. Reputation is something you'll need for some groups and people. I'm going to have a separate video talking about reputation for crafting, which is a little bit separate than reputation just for like having the ability to barter with certain peoples in certain places. Reputation will help you like, oh, you can get a certain special mount or a certain special item from the people of Breland or the people of the Shire or the people of the dwarves of Thorin Hall, right? The hobbits, I should say, of the Shire. They're all peoples. They're all the free peoples, so the terminology. But reputation is also good to know about, but that's not really exactly what this video is about, but just throwing that out there. That's what tasks would be for. And tasks are a little bit of a side thing that I'm not really going in this video, because pretty much all tasks are for then is you bring in task items. If you have any item in the world, okay, and it looks something like, let's see, these. Now I have a carry-all, but you have something in your inventory like this, like a broken axe or an ear, or you're like sea-tossed skin, and you're like, this is gross. Why do I have these in my inventory? You can sell them for a good silver, but if you look at them and hover them and it says this item may be turned in for tasks, and it'll say it in a certain area. For mine, this one is Umbar or Outer Gondor. It'll tell you the location basically, and if it's a task item, and that's when you go to the task board and turn it in. There's a limit to how many tasks you can do a day. You can see in your quest log right here. I have a limit of 5. I could increase it, but I don't do tasks that often, so I didn't increase it. And of course quests, but I have a whole video on quests, so we're not gonna. That's not what we're talking about here today. But tasks just kind of have a feeling of something kind of like missions, because they're kind of a daily, so I thought I'd just mention it, even though it really doesn't have anything to do with like going into a battle or something that's like in an instance or dungeon. For those of you who play other games, that might make more sense. So pretty much with that all said, all of the things I talked about except for tasks, you will teleport into another area where only you and your fellowship, your group of 6 people or whatever, will be able to see and run the whole thing, fight a couple monsters on the way, beat a boss usually. This isn't the case for all of them, but sort of. Get your loot out of the chest and teleport out, which I think most people that know about fantasy, anything genre, can understand that concept of what I just explained. But that is all what instances are, raids, epic battles, missions, and skirmishes are. Alright? And the differences between things like non-scaling ones, regular scaling, and delving, which is an upgrading of difficulty, which you cannot do with every instance in the game. There's only particularly a lot of the newer ones can do that because it's a newer system. But a lot of them can do scaling from tier 1 to 3, which can be confusing, I think. Most instances and raids have always been able to scale 1 to 3 since an update many years ago, to just make them more difficult and get slightly better loot. But the delving system's a whole new thing entirely that scales all of those in-battle world things that you join and then come back out into the main world, to make them between 1 and 10 difficulty, and they give you different rewards and stuff like that. So, and most of them that you can scale to 1 to 3 can't also be scaled with delving, so don't confuse that. You can see that in the instance finder when you use that little filter like I showed you. So keep all of that in mind, my friends. I hope that this helped you out. I'm going to put this as a moderate difficulty guide playlist, because it's just a lot of information and talking. But I wanted to try to explain to everyone those differences because they are very important. Now, just so you know, I'm also going to make guides on all of these individually, but I thought I'd have an overarching guide of knowledge and terminologies, because I think that's a big thing with the knowledge of any MMO or game, is having those terminologies and knowing what they mean. When you ask a question in the world chat and someone says, oh, it's blah, 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 skirmish. And you're like, what does that even mean? Right? Because then you feel even more dumb, right? Like, I know the feeling. I mean, I've been there too, okay? I know that I love LOTRO and I've been doing this a long time, but I get that feeling with any game I join in, and I feel like I don't want to ask a silly question. Usually I just ask anyway, but you have to realize most people aren't going to care, right? You know, we tend to, like, worry that someone's going to, like, make fun of us, but most people are going to be wonderful. And the LOTRO community is fantastic. People really help you out. If you want to join us, we're on the server CrickHollow, and we have Kinship here. And I highly recommend, even if you're not on the server, you join our Discord and our community. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It's free. And the Discord is free to join as well. If you're a patron, you do get some extra bonuses. But you can join the Discord from voiceoftherings.com right down there, the link, social media tab, and it's always good. Thanks to my patrons for their support. Again, I hope that this little 25-minute video helped you out. And I'll see you all in the next episodes of Voice of the Rings. And I am at your service and your families. Baruch Hazard, Kuzar, I menu. I will see you in the next one, my friends. And I will hope to make some more good guides on all of this for you. Please leave your comments and questions. I would be happy to help, and also give me great ideas on a certain video, specific subject you want help with on LOTRO. Let me know. I would be happy to make one. See you in the next one.